Welcome back to this week's episode. I am talking to you from Miami. It's nice and hot, July, perfect time to be here. This week, I decided to not share another guest because last week's guest, if you haven't heard yet or you haven't tuned in, was with Dugu. And she spoke about entrepreneurship, and I really enjoyed our conversation. There's so much golden nuggets in there about building your own business and how to think business, really. And it's not something you could necessarily just use if you're building your own business, but it's also great to reflect on it if you have a professional career and you're working with other people. So this week I decided, you know what, I'm just going to share my insights of the week. As some of you may know, I was moving out of my apartment and I decided to do a major declutter before I move into my next place. And in between my move, I said, you know what, I just need to get away from the whole London vibe and get connected back with my creativity and thinking outside the box, really. So coming here, this is like my second home, and my mom and my sister was flying up from the Caribbean and decided we were going to spend quality time together. Now, our heritage comes from an entrepreneurial background as well. So one of the things I'm always thinking about is how can I make my company better? How do I develop my unique selling point? What am I really missing? And that is a really also like kind of a decluttering of relationships that's going on. Is what I'm doing right now really functioning well? I posted this photo up of my mom and myself, and I spoke about, so in the caption, I wrote about the voice of fear and the voice of purpose. Now, this thought had come to me when my sisters and my mom, who are still very proud of this achievement I had done many years ago with having a very successful company, a yoga center, they sometimes feel when I'm struggling, Cutie, why not just go back to the whole, yoga center because you're really good at it. And in some ways, it really does bother me because I feel like I'm more than that. I'm more than just stretching people's backsides. And I find that in the yoga or in the well-being industry, there's a lot of this mistaken empathy going on where people use this whole way of being nice and being kind as a way of policing one another. And I'll explain this a little more about why I came to this. And this morning, I had gone to pick up some packages, and I got there and I asked the lady, hey, are you having a beautiful week? And her reply was, I have nothing to complain about. So, yeah. And I was like, but I didn't ask you that. Are you having a beautiful week? And she goes, well, what do you mean by that? And I think that is a conversation stopper. It gets you to reflect and think back on the way we treat ourselves in our daily lives. We're not just about what we do. She was saying she doesn't have anything to complain because the customers have been nice. It happens to be Amazon Prime Week, so there were a lot of packages coming in. But in between that, she had to just stop and say, well, actually, I am having a beautiful week. So I asked her, why are you having a beautiful week? And she goes, I wake up every morning and I really appreciate that I get to spend time with my children and my family. Life is precious. And I really think that hits the nail on the head. It's sometimes we're so caught up in just doing that we forget to ask ourselves, why are we really doing what we're doing? And for me, I think we start living according to this voice of fear rather than the voice of purpose. Now, how do you distinguish that? So when you start always thinking about your future and wanting to constantly secure your tomorrow financially, it's really a voice of fear that's driving you that says, well, if you don't stop working or if you start doing less, then really you may hit into uncertainty or a lack of control. So we start living from this voice of fear of like, if you don't work hard, you won't get income. And for me, I realized when I was running the yoga center, I had done that as well. I was constantly on the go, trying to get better at something, so that I was able to keep getting clients coming in. But really, I was living from the voice of fear. I was trying to secure my future because I did not know or feel confident enough that if I take a step back as a leader or as a businesswoman, would my company go down? So, was I really good at something? Was I really enjoying teaching? I'm not so sure at this point. When I left at that age 39, I was living from the voice of fear, and I was so disconnected from what actually brings me joy. So, in the past X amount of years that I've been traveling the world, meeting a lot of people, indulging my senses, learning about different cultures and how to live in different cultures, I started understanding my voice of purpose. And my voice of purpose is very different from the way society tells you how to live life. Because society is constantly trying to take care of you by telling you, you got to do better, or you got to do this. So there's a lot of voice of fear going on. And for me, this morning in the conversation I was having with this lady, I was telling her, if you look at the news as well, it's always coming from a voice of fear. So we spend majority of our minds in the voice of fear rather than spending time in the silence to understand what is also our voice of purpose. See, fear is necessary, but purpose is also necessary. And finding your balance between the two really comes from the space between both. And to me, that is what yoga is actually all about. It's always about coming back to the silence or the quietness inside so that you can observe your different thoughts, your thoughts of fears and your thoughts of purpose, your voice of fear and your voice of purpose. And that is where in there, being able to observe both sides of yourself, you develop a different relationship of yourself and you come to a sense of trust. And this is the key. When you come to that sense of trust with yourself, you actually don't force yourself to be adaptable or flexible, but you have a certain sense of ease with yourself. And to me, that is the confidence we're all seeking, is to have a certain ease with ourselves. And while you may say, well, that's common sense, it's such common sense, but because we've been sitting so long in our fears, we actually have a struggle and a fear of slowing down, because if we slow down from being busy, what then always shows up? And that is when, for me, I was like, so actually, that is what my company has been all about, how you combine the well-being and communication. So having those conversations with my family in the decluttering phase is super useful. But I also took it one step further after listening to them, is I started assessing the quality of relationships and people I'm surrounded with. Are the people I'm surrounded with keeping me comfortable, i.e. in my voice of fear, and also supporting me in a way to still stay lazy or procrastinate in doing what is actually my voice of purpose? Taking the investment or the risk in believing in myself to do what I really want to do and not be sure of how that's going to work out later on. Sometimes when you take an assessment of such kinds of relationships, you will know that for a while, you end up losing the relationships you didn't think you were going to lose, but you need to let go of them so that you can trust yourself truly inside. So that is my thought. I would just wanted to share with you my insights of finding that balance in between the voice of fear and voice of purpose. I am going to write more about it in my Substack publication. If you haven't joined yet, just look up Drop Your Noise on Substack. And I will be sharing more on this insight, tips, and techniques. If you haven't followed or subscribed yet, now is a great time. Just hit follow and subscribe. And if you found this week's episode useful, I really appreciate if you share it out, because when you share it, it helps grow the podcast and it also inspires me to keep bringing more and different topics and ideas surrounding communication in this world. Enjoy your week, enjoy your summer. Until the next one, take it easy.